Hi, Barujan. How are you? Great office. Been so long since I read someone get this. Hi, Frederick Chan. How are you? You sick, Barujan? Is that? Oh, thanks for the sub, Barujan. 14 months already. Thank you so much. Hmm. Hang on. I need to apply butter to my bread first. Hang on, let me just get this done. Hmm. A bit more. Okay. I finished using the butter. No, but she might. Okay, all done. Now to bite to my Vegemite butter bread. Mm, tastes so good. Mm, okay. Same. Oh, Right. Wait. Thanks. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, still not level 65. So slow. Hmm? Hmm. What do you intend to use this method for? Use. Okay. Use. Right. Hang on. Let's get the crystals. Okay. Hmm. Uh, Bye. Bye. Hmm. Mhm. So, let's go. Kung finish. Bye bye. Let's Baik-baik. I see. Cool. Yeay, con nhiều tiền. Baik-baik. Bye bye. Finish. This new battle is so hard open. Hmm. That's strange. Okay, never mind. Let's see. Hmm. Hmm? Phew. Let's go. Hey, bye bye. Hey, bye bye. Nice. Mm, cool. Oh, 3 star. Very cool. No one wants to come. 1%. 2%. 3%. Okay, nice. Let's go. Hmm? Thanks for the raid, Moonlight Trade Chat. Oh, eh, how was your stream? How was your game? Thanks for the follow as well. Hope you enjoy your stay here. Um, hang on. Uh, let me give you a shout out first. What were you playing? Uh, mm, oh, you're also playing Tower of Fantasy. That's great. How are you finding the game so far? Uh, it's going good for me. Well, for the latest, uh, yeah, it's been a while since I do this, so yeah, I am a VTuber, and I usually stream a variety of things. And hope you guys enjoy the raid, and I might see you guys. I hope to see you guys more often. Transmute. Transmute. They're so far away. Okay. Okay. Oops. Rarity 3 again. Recruit. Let's go. Which weapon? Are you talking about fix? Or freaks? Yeah. The ice weapon? Yeah, I have her. You did 160 posts, no nemesis, no crit, no nothing. How can that be? That's so sad. You did 80 and 80 or something like that. Thanks for the follow, Billy Chan. Hope you enjoy your stay here. Why is my freak so cool? Mini chat. It is what it is. This one? I mean, it's two weapon, dual wielding, and it's so it's cool. Eh, mhm. Okay. Eh, na- smack. Hi, Solitary-chan. I'm okay. How are you? And I forgot to greet Fury-chan. How are you, Fury-chan? How is your day off? That's great. Um, same old, same old. Oops. I need to kill. Oops. Oh, there. ああ、わかんないですの。うん。ええ。うん。うん。No oops. What the heck? Great trouble. え、like a VTuber も、hmm, depend on what's your budget. Well, I know of artists from China who will do it for 600 a piece. The avatar and what's that called? The skeleton thingy. It's not bad. Yeah, Ricky. Well, it is what it is. People have to eat. Oh, yes. No, bye bye. Oh, very cool. Fairies. Oh, the pets. I mean, like gifts. Yeah, that's the same artist that made my model. Well, the last time I checked, it was about 600 plus, give or take. Yeah, starting over sucks though. You can always, if you don't eat a single meal in 20 months, you could buy a model. In 2 months or 20 months? What's Sigma grind? Sigma male like alpha male and beta male. Oh, why can't you work? I mean, streaming is considered working. Your manager was 100% a Sigma male. He worked like 90 hours a week. Oh, just to buy a house. That's crazy. Because of illness. I'm sorry to hear that. Good night, Jen. Not a current manager creature. That is crazy though. Yeah, it will get better. Well, the thing is, we all have to do some homework. It's just whether you enjoy the work. Mm-mm. I have no idea how to open this box of butter. Hmm. Happy, happy. Happy good. Huh? Oh, I know what. Hey. Oh. So, hmm. Wait. Happy, happy. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop. Did I get it? No. That wasn't fair. Mm-hmm. Almost done. Almost. Yes, please have gacha. No, no, no. Finish it. That's so sad. Oh well. Hmm. Shh. Hmm. 3 purpose at least. Yeah, that's true. Mm, yeah, that's true. That's true. So we got a few of these. I forgot how many. Let's look at some YouTube videos. Mm, What is to make this mistake?
Alright, since Claudia's banner is coming September 15th, and those looking to pull her are patiently waiting to do so, to say the least. I know I'm not the only one noticing how fast these banners are actually being pushed out and eventually going to start overlapping each other very soon. So I'm just here to discuss some things that worry me as a free-to-play player, so it is what it is. Anyways, I do want to throw out that yes, there are some characters that are coming up in the future that look cool either from their kits, gameplay, or even design-wise, but if you're free-to-play or even a low spender at most, you do need to consider what element you solely want to work on, because most of the units in game coming will have elemental resonance and possibly be stronger than units we currently have as well. So that's why it's important to consider saving for that said unit that can help your team make it through content much easier. Take me for example, I'm setting up for frost elements because I have a A0 Frigg and an A5 Tsubasa, so I'm skipping majority of these upcoming banners for Saki Fuwa being my big damage element, not only to maximize my damage, but she complements my team comps on top of having frost resonance regarding with Frigg, so it flows pretty well. Then once I'm done with this frost element, I'll move on to the next one, so on and so forth. Reruns do tend to happen up to like 6 months top, and after a rerun unit gets put out, they'll be recycled into the standard banner, so you got plenty of chances to either stack up for your next element or for the unit you missed for the first time. Trust me. I say this also because since level cap increases, so do our upgrade costs as well, so it's going to be very tedious to really work on multiple elements without money, weapon charges, or other resources in that regard. Then you're going to be wondering, where did I go wrong with my team setup, let alone my damage? But I digress. You can have a main element and a side element because at certain times when content, you gotta do either joint operations or void rift. For gear and materials, they have either immunity or resistance on the element you main, so now you gotta hope for a team to help you through the content, and it's torture to not only you, but your teammates as well, simply because you do no damage at all, making it pain to kill bosses way faster. So I would suggest a side element to work on just for you to be more flexible in terms terms of damage, like having King on a Frost comp just for Shatter for example. You only do this though if you're willing to put in an extra effort to farm more materials than normally. Your main element does take priority first, to say the least. For those fixating on going after Claudia, you better be prepared to go after Lyra as well, for not only the resonance buff, but how well their synergy is together. Claudia being the buffer and Lyra being your main DPS, but Lyra is a very long time away, so I hope you're really dedicated to play that element once she comes around. Same goes for those going for Cobalt. You better be prepared to go after Ruby, literally a walking nuke in flame comp. Overall, this is just advice to be honest, but if you want the character, go for them. Just be prepared to work for that character if you're willing to stick with that element, of course. Hopefully this wasn't too long, but leave a like if you found this a little useful, I guess. It's just been something on my mind. But it's been your boy N. I will see you guys next time. Peace.
All right, y'all. I wanted to come here and actually have a pretty serious conversation with you guys. I know you're probably grinding out the artificial island right now, but this video is something that's extremely important. And to be honest, everyone needs to be locked in and people need to be sharing this because it could happen to any of us. It could happen to you next. And what am I talking about exactly? There was a comment made on my video that I haven't been really paying too much attention to the last couple times I saw this particular comment, but as I'm starting to see more and more players in my community say this, I'm not thinking it's a troll anymore. At first, I thought it was like, okay, this is probably a Genshin hater, probably trying to spread some type of hate for Tower of Fantasy, spread some rumors about stuff that they're doing or whatever, you know, just playing into the, oh, Tower of Fantasy is real scummy and scammy. I thought that that's what this was going to be until I actually started to pay attention to who I saw saying this on my channel and how many people I saw saying this on my channel, and the fact that I looked at the Reddit. Usually every morning I take a look at the Reddit, and I've seen people post about this a couple of times, but again, I just thought it may be user error or something. But that many coincidences can't be a coincidence anymore. This is something that we should probably be majorly concerned about. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a comment from my video earlier today, and it's from David Max Steinbach. He says, I just want to add to the complaint of this game. Don't get me wrong, I love Tower of Fantasy, don't we all, David? But there is just something weird going on. I just want to bring awareness to this. So essentially, a handful of us got our characters removed from our accounts to say. We didn't lose our accounts, our characters somehow got unlinked. So these people were able to still sign in with their account, but somehow the character got unlinked from their account, meaning the character just wasn't available on the account anymore. I know I asked a couple people when I saw them saying this initially. I asked them, I was like, hey, did you make sure that you were trying to log back in on the correct server? They said yes. I mean, I just gotta go off of what they're saying. So at the very least, this video, I'll get to it at the end. I'll get to that at the end. All right, so this is not the first time it happened to players. It also happened in mid-August. The only success stories from the August issue is that some were fixed was by deleting anything Tower Fantasy related from local and roaming folders in the main app data folder, which kind of baffled me because it sounds like somehow our saved data was stored locally on our computer. Interesting, okay? And he keeps going. Some players who were fixed recently that I know of used to be able to log in from their binded social accounts like Google Play, Apple, Facebook. Now they log in by email and they never bind it to email to save. Been seeing a lot of issues that are from mobile or mobile connected. They lost their characters after restarting or updating their phones. I'm currently back and forth with CS customer service via email for 4 days now. Provided all my necessary information. The weird thing is that they have not stated I'm using the incorrect account information as of yet, which leads me to think somehow my character is still linked to my email and this is just a massive bug. If anyone has any success stories related to my issue, please share. I'd love to investigate. Some of the players I was speaking to went and restarted, while some of us, like myself, I'm too far ahead, level 60, C6 King, C2 Coco, C1 Frig. I am definitely not starting over, especially this being a gacha game. Oh boy. All right, y'all. So obviously, pretty big issue here. There's a couple of things that we need to tackle here within this one little post, right? So the main thing here being people are losing access to their characters, not their accounts necessarily, their characters. They're experiencing a glitch where they're kicking them out the game, and then when they try to log back in, their character is missing. I had someone in my stream today during the update actually coming in. There was 2 people. I think it was King Geo and there was another guy that came in, and they told me, hey, I've been dealing with this same issue. I've been in contact with customer service for 2 weeks now. Another guy said he was doing it for 3 weeks. These people have been in contact with customer service for weeks trying to get this fixed, and they both are spenders. So that's something that's extremely scary as a player, as someone that's looking to invest into Tower of Fantasy, albeit whether it's time or money. This is scary. And the reason I'm making this video is hopefully someone from Hota Studios can see this video and you guys can put out some type of information, any type of PR, as far as talking about, hey, we know this is an issue, or hey, this is an issue that we've seen before. We haven't received any information about this issue, which I hope that's not the route you go, because there's clearly been a lot of people trying to contact customer service about this. But I hope that we get some type of information, guys, that's letting us know. We know that this is a current issue that's happening right now. We're trying to figure out how to fix it. We're currently working with these players trying to figure out how to fix it, because I'm gonna be honest, bro, if this happened to me, I would be done. I would be done just sheerly off of the time investment that it requires to actually play Tower of Fantasy and 100% everything and get your characters, the playing with the gacha, the fact that it's a gacha, you got a C6 character. I have a C6 King, C4 Samir. There's no way I'm going to keep playing if something like that was to happen to me. So that is extremely scary. I think by far, this is probably the biggest threat to the safety of the game as far as players go. And I've heard a couple people say it's kind of strange how Tower of Fantasy does a couple of things that's a little bit weird as far as messing around with your computer and keeping certain tabs up in the background, and you have to go in, to take those tabs down. And just like they were talking about the files being stored locally on the computer, and it's just a couple of strange things as it pertains to this title. But I'm not a tech geek. I'm not a tech wizard. I have no clue. I'm too smooth brain to be able to really process that and give you guys a real explanation as to what is happening there or why that's happening. If anybody does know, you're welcome to come on and talk to us about it, or let us know in the comments. I'll pin it or something. But as far as people losing their accounts, Hota, you have to do something about this. This is a major issue, and at this point, I have continuously saw the same type of message over the course of weeks now, and I'm guessing I probably started to see it in mid-August. That actually sounds about right when I started to see those particular complaints about people losing their accounts. I even had people from my communities that have been playing several different games with me that I know for a fact experienced the same issue. It was one of my most loyal viewers experienced the same issue where they got started off in the game and all of a sudden their account was just completely missing, almost like the server rolled back on them or something. I have no clue. This is a scary issue. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. With all these major titles being released, Tokyo Game Show is currently going on right now, so we have more titles coming out around the corner. With all these major titles,
Let's stop. His voice is starting to get annoying. Anime voice actor. That's good.
ゴムゴムのこんな感じです。もしもし、大丈夫ですか？フォロワー、こんにちは。
I will not let you destroy my world!
ゆずれ、布団、路線終点。ゴムゴムのこんな感じです。もしもし、大丈夫ですか？フォロワー、こんにちは。
That's cute. Okay, good night, Moonlight-chan. Hope to see you again. Is this Chinese TikTok? It is Japanese TikTok. Hmm. Let's go to Frontier Quest. Hi. So, not that I know of. Okay. Next one. Oh. Oh. That sucks. Mm. Oh. One of the DPS is not carrying himself. Look at this DPS is so weak. And the healer isn't doing much. Open. No go. Set. What good trade I got? Yeah, when I see I'm on the top 2 DPS as a tank, I know this team cannot make it already. It's sad, but it's true. Okay. Interesting. I'm ahead of a lot of people. Why? That's just so wrong. Because as a DPS, you got 40 more percent of damage. That's a lot compared to a tank. I mean, it is different. I mean, as a tank, I'm 40% less damage than DPS. Think about it. Oh, uh, hmm. Let's look at this.
Lyadona, known as the Weeping or Wailing Woman, was likely born in the 1650s. We know this because she appears to be in her 20s when she is married with children in 1673. Lyadona was alive
I
so long
would
ago
think
that the
so.
best known record of her mostly comes from the folklore surrounding her. While the stories vary depending on the source, a few constants overlap. When Lyadona was young, she had a different name. In some retelling, it's Maria, but in a well-known play written in 1917, it's Luisa. In many iterations
Wait,
of
one
the
of your
story, she was born into
favorites?
poverty, but as she grew up, she became incredibly
Yeah.
wealthy. So much so that she drew the attention of a wealthy ranchero. He married her and they had 2 boys. Unfortunately, these children would not live for very long. As she gave them life, she also took it away.
Makes
thus
sense.
beginning the curse of La Llorona. To find out what drove this young mother to commit this act, how she became known as the Weeping Woman, and how her curse endangered generations of children, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by Audible. Welcome to Horror History. In today's lesson, I'll be covering the life and afterlife of one of Mexico and Central America's most iconic legends, La Llorona. There's not a lot documented about the childhood of La Llorona, but one thing that is consistent across the various legends is that she grew up in poverty. So when a wealthy conquistador came to her town and pursued her, it makes sense that this would be a very big deal to her. According to History Today, there was initially a shortage of Spanish women in what the Spanish dubbed as New Spain, the region now referred to as Spring Break. This meant that unions between indigenous women and Spanish men were quite common. However, many of these unions didn't last very long. To get a better understanding, we'll need to take it back to Mexico and parts of Central America during the 1600s, where this iteration
I
of
got
the
no
legend
idea what's
started.
the island.
The fates of indigenous and mestiza women who married Spaniards were mixed. Some enjoyed stability and enhanced status, but more often than not, they were cast aside a few years later for younger women, or more often, a Spanish wife. More alarmingly, their children were sometimes taken away, a practice that derived from the Spanish tradition of relieving the so-called wayward women of their children. This left many women during this time to feel completely helpless. La Llorona is kind of an embodiment of the collective pain and anger of women from this time that got turned into legend. It's something that's come up a lot in horror history, from Godzilla being a metaphor for nuclear fallout to the Demogorgon being a manifestation of fears of communism. I think we need a term for this, so I'll call it cultural legendizing. That sounds pretty good. There are different iterations of La Llorona, but for the sake of horror history, we'll stick to the lore as told in the Conjuring universe, more specifically, the 2019 film The Curse of La Llorona. According to the local priest, Father Perez, the story goes as follows. La Llorona
It sounds
fell in love
scary.
and had 2 sons with her husband. The family loved each other, and her sons demonstrated their care for her by giving her a necklace. I don't think she knew at the time how literally true this statement was. Father Perez explains that she and her family were happy until one day she found her man in the arms of a younger woman. In a fit of rage, she took away what he deemed most valuable, his testicles. Oh wait, no, it was his children, and she drowned them in the nearby river. As soon as her rage blindness cleared and she realized what she had done, she wept and then took her own life in the same river, cursing herself to an eternity of trying to find the souls of children to trade for her own.
Children are told to behave. Listen to their elders. La Llorona will come. Steal them away.
It kind of seems like the moral of the story has been aimed at the wrong people. The kids are the only people who didn't do anything wrong, and they suffered the most. And future generations of children are made to fear the tale of La Llorona, when it should probably be directed at couples. For the next 100 years, La Llorona continued to haunt the river and other bodies of water, searching for
It's
children
in
to kill.
Mexico
As the
and
legend
there's
grew,
no way in
people
hell you
claimed to
ever
fear
go
a
there.
human crime. Some followed
Dog
this
freaks you
to
out.
find a woman in a
That's
white
true.
gown floating above the river. If children were the ones to find her, she was said to be
Eagles.
ruthless, and that they wouldn't stand a chance of escaping. These stories mostly come from Mexico, but like my friends at the nearby taco truck, the legend would burrow its way across the border. In 1973, the Weeping Woman appeared in Los Angeles. All this time I thought it was La Llorona, maybe it's actually L.A. Llorona. It's never clearly explained how La Llorona went from haunting one specific river in Mexico to becoming an Angelino. We just know that she's doomed to an eternity of searching rivers and bodies of water. There are several rivers, such as the Colorado River or the Tijuana River, that run from Mexico into Southern California, so over the course of 100 years, she could have migrated up these channels. While La Llorona was just a children's tale to some, the single mother, Patricia Alvarez, and the recent widow, Ana Garcia, were about to experience the curse firsthand. I think La Llorona targeted these 2 women because they were reminiscent of herself. Patricia is alone in raising her kids, and based on Anna's questions about if she started drinking again, it's clear that she's had a rough life and doesn't really have a support system. Anna lost her husband in the line of fire, and while he didn't choose to leave her, she was still left in a difficult situation nonetheless. Both Patricia and Anna have 2 children close in age to La Lyadona's 2 kids, and both are Hispanic. Lyodona first targets Patricia and her 2 sons, Carlos and Tomas. Patricia seems to take all the necessary steps to deter the malicious spirits: a shrine of candles, boarded up windows, religious iconography, and a closet transformed into a protective spirit shelter for her kids. She may have set this up based on her own knowledge of the legend of Lyodona, which she demonstrates a pretty clear understanding of.
Your children, have they heard her crying? Have they felt the sting of her tears? They will.
Or she could have received guidance from Raphael, a curandero or healer, who is an expert at handling Lyodona. This might explain why Raphael is at the service for her 2 boys after they're killed, and why he goes back later to collect a sample of Lyodona's tears. Either way, when Anna arrives and finds that Patricia has hidden her children away, Patricia begs Anna for just one more night, which seems to imply that if Lyodona isn't able to take the children within a certain time frame, she moves on. This could be representative of the nature by which Lyodona kills her own children. It happened in a fit of rage, and once she had calmed down, she regretted her choice. So maybe if given enough time, she'll spare the children she's after, just as she likely would have with her own. But that's just a theory. A film theory. In the controversy, Lyodona does not just kill children upon first sight. Her haunting follows a specific process, which we've seen before. Her curse seems to follow the same rules that apply to demonic possession, by following the steps of infestation, oppression, and finally, possession. In Lyodona's case, she isn't necessarily trying to possess a person in the take over their body sense that we're used to seeing, but she is trying to possess children's souls.
Then why would you make an empty box like
It makes
those?
sense
It's
that
not
Lyodona's
nothing
curse
to...
follows the same rules as
I
demonic
don't
possession, just as
understand your
Bathsheba
question.
did with the Perrin family back in 1971. Bathsheba is not technically a demon, but the terror she dishes out follows the same process. But Lyodona's version of infestation, oppression, and possession have unique ways of manifesting themselves, which creates problems for all of those involved. Since I've already told you about Ed and Lorraine Warren's books that you can listen to exclusively on Audible, there are also many more reasons to explore the catalog and sign up. Audible is the only place you can listen to The Demonologist, the career biography of Ed and Lorraine. Specific steps. First, she burns the children with her tears by grabbing their arms and scorching them. By doing this, she gains access to them, including the ability to put them in a trance and lure them to her. This aspect of the legend would reflect her own children's trust in her before she drowned them. With all of her victims, her method of attack is drowning them in the nearest body of water. The location of the burn marks left on their arms also ties back to the legend from the 1600s. The burns are in a very visible spot, and from what we can see, most or all of the families that her spirit terrorizes are single mothers. Children in single-parent households are significantly more likely to be abused, according to this study in the National Library of Medicine. As I mentioned, Patricia was already subject to welfare checks before Lyodona entered her life.
You don't
If
find
abuse is
those
found
scary.
during a welfare check, law enforcement may take away the children for their safety. So the very visible burn marks feel like Lyodona's revenge. After her children were unfairly taken from her, she's imparting that same pain onto her victims. This is exactly what happens to Patricia. Keeping the boys hidden away in the blessed closet was her last hope at keeping Carlos and Tomas safe from Lyodona. But during her welfare check, Anna tries to take them out, leaving them completely vulnerable. As the boys sleep in the foster care institution, Lyodona
It's
makes her next
their
move.
medical
She puts
that's
Tomas in a
scary.
trance and
That
summons him
doesn't
out
really
of the
have
bedroom.
much
Carlos
to
wakes up
do.
and seeing his brother
Okay.
is standing at the edge of the room,
I'm
he
just
calls for him,
saying.
trying to get him to come back to bed. But it's too
Those
late.
are
Carlos
scary.
catches sight of Lyodona in the mirror. Then, after her briefly disappearing, he gazes upon a puddle of water from a leak in the ceiling, and this happens. She grabs both of them and takes them to a nearby river to drown them. Anna is called to the crime scene to identify the bodies, and with no father to watch them, she has no choice but to take her own children with and lock them in the car.
Stay in the car, okay?
Uh,
And please don't wake up your sister.
But Chris is a kid, and of course, kids don't listen to their parents, especially when they're right next to an active crime scene that looks really cool. Patricia also shows up, and driven mad with grief, tries to blame Anna for interfering. When Anna asks what she's talking about, Patricia tells her.
La Llorona.
At this point, Patricia essentially becomes a proxy of Lyodona herself. She's prayed to the wicked spirit, asking her to take Anna's children in place of her own.
And I pray to her to give my children back to me and take yours instead.
Patricia is now following Lyodona's ghastly footsteps, hoping to sacrifice other children in order to trade their souls for her own. It's almost as if the spirit of Lyodona sees Anna's kids through Patricia.
Yeah,
because
more
Anna's
afraid
kids
of
aren't
shadow
targeted
monsters
until
and
Patricia
beasts.
makes eye contact with Chris as she's taken away in the police car. When Chris ignores his mother's warning and gets out of the car to
Yeah, but
investigate, Lyodona sobs in
there's a
nearby
difference.
alley, luring
Shadow
Chris
monsters
to her
and
side.
beasts
As
are
he
not.
checks to see if she's okay, her head suddenly snaps in his direction.
Eh,
and she
it's
lunges
not
towards him,
physical.
allowing herself to burn him with her tears by grabbing his arm and scorching it. She's now attached herself
Those
to the
are
fence. He
in
chases
front
him back
of
to the
us.
car where he breaks the other rule that Anna set for him, not to wake
And
up his sister,
most are
as he begs to
scary.
be let back in. Only he can see La Llorona screeching at him on the other side of the window, but Chris's behavior is still enough to scare him. In addition to that, Samantha becomes La Llorona's next target. The following day, while Anna is at work, she's playing out in the rain with a see-through umbrella. La Llorona attempts to lure her in the same way that she did with Chris by crying off in the distance. However, Sam has more self-preservation and stops at the fence just at the end of their yard, so La Llorona resorts to other tactics. She blows Sam's umbrella into the water, and when she reaches in to get it, she's met with a surprise. She too is burned when La Llorona grabs her arm and scorches it with her tears. That night, she puts Chris into a heavy trance, and Anna finds him repeatedly opening and closing the front door. She thinks he's sleepwalking, but he's really setting the stage for La Llorona to blow open the door, granting her access to the house, which she uses to confront Anna that same night.
Get out of my house!
Anna ushers the kids to come in and sleep in her bed while staying up all night on guard with a baseball bat. The terror continues the next day. While Anna is at work, La Llorona lures Chris into Samantha's bedroom and knocks him to the floor with another powerful gust of supernatural wind and lunges for him, scaring him away to the edge of the stairs, which she
Yeah,
pushes
if it
him down
bleeds, we
after
can
appearing
kill
in
it.
the adjacent room. He lands on his wrist just before Anna walks through the door, and she completely overreacts, considering from her point of view, he was just sitting there with a sprained wrist. Sure, La Llorona probably could have killed Chris right then and there if she wanted to, but she may have been setting Anna up, just like she did with Patricia, to seem like an ill-equipped mother, as she would know firsthand that having her own children taken away from her was a pain worse than death. The ensuing social services visit at Anna's house was probably a humiliation very much akin to La Llorona's feelings when the conquistador she married took her boys away to a better-suited woman. Also, La Llorona still needs to burn Anna with the black tears in order to complete the curse. As Samantha is upstairs taking a bath alone, which seems like kinda not a good idea given everything that has happened, La Llorona seizes the opportunity to attack her and bring Anna to a place of vulnerability. Samantha is washing her hair with her eyes closed when she feels a pair of hands massaging her scalp. For a brief moment, La Llorona is tender with Samantha, just as she likely was with her own children. Sam is tricked by the feeling of that motherly touch. However, as she leans her head back to rinse, La Llorona's decrepit hands pull her under and pin her there. Anna and Chris hear the commotion in the bathroom and run up to save her, just in time. Anna pulls her out of the tub, where she crawls backwards, petrified in fear, almost looking as if she's scared of her mother, but she's actually gazing on to La Llorona. This time, it's Anna's turn to get burned by the weeping woman's touch, just as she turns around to see it. By this point, La Llorona has marked each family member to complete the curse and can now strike at any moment to kill the children. Things would be complicated, however, when Anna goes outside the church to bring in reinforcements. Anna and the kids
Yeah,
seek out the
Xenomorph.
curandero Raphael, who reluctantly agrees and
I'm
implements
not
his
afraid of
orthodox
Xenomorph.
methods by having Anna and his kids roll eggs over everything in the house. He calls the ritual La Limpa, and he says that it's meant to detect evil in the house. The ritual of rolling an egg in its shell to pick up or ward off evil is a practice that not only goes way back in healing, but is still in practice today. He cracks one egg into a bowl, revealing the yolk to have turned into a burning black tar.
It's
and the
just
other egg
annoying to
explode,
me.
gushing the substance everywhere. Almost like the spiritual equivalent of a paper
I
towel
don't
covering up dirt
understand
on the surface.
Xenomorph
It
here.
reveals that La Llorona has definitely made her mark on the house and the family. Anna and the children assist Raphael in several other rituals, leaving the house looking very similar to how Patricia's looked when Anna went to pay her that initial welfare check. While doing this, Chris notices Raphael's cross, which he explains to be crafted from the fire trees that surround the river where La Llorona drowned her children.
They say the fire trees wept as La Llorona drowned her children. As the only witness to her sins, they hold a special power over her.
He also reveals the vial of La Llorona's black blood tears, which he collected from Patricia's house. He mixes it with holy water and refers to it as anti-venom. La Llorona arrives later that night, vicious and determined to find the children. Anna and the kids believe that they're being protected as they're surrounded by candles huddled in the living room under Raphael's direction.
As
But
soon
La
as I
Llorona
got
takes
a
the right
gun,
time and
that's a
wails
good
out
difference.
horrible sound that extinguishes all of the lights. Anna and the kids are actually exactly where La Llorona wants them. It wouldn't be a movie of the Controverse if there weren't some air-eating and and La Llorona starts that here. Anna is aerated out of the way and left unconscious on the floor. As the kids beg Raphael for help, he does nothing, but instead slinks back into the shadows of the house, leaving the kids unprotected and completely susceptible to be aerated. When Anna comes to, she gets up to try to save her son, but she's not gonna make it in time. At just the last possible moment, Raphael sticks a hand out and grabs Chris while throwing his vial of antivenom into La Llorona's face. This has the desired effect and burns her face so badly that she lets go of Chris, and Raphael is able to shove her out through the front door. He slams it shut and puts down another row of seeds from the fire tree. Explained another way, it was all a setup to lock La Llorona out of the house, and to her frustration, she fell for it. Because the seeds are collected from the same fire tree that the cross is made from, La Llorona is unable to cross this barrier as long as the line is not broken. And apparently she can't use any of that supernatural wind power to break them herself. I don't make the rules. I guess Rafa overlooked the Garcia's back door though, because La Llorona promptly uses her force to blow it open. Anna, Chris, and Raphael race back to seal it shut, but Raphael was not the only one playing chess here. This was also just a clever distraction.
Clever girl.
She's really just using the back door as a distraction to trick Samantha into breaking the seal. La Llorona gets a hold of Misty, Samantha's beloved doll that she associates with her deceased father. She would not be the first or last evil entity to manipulate a doll in the Conjureverse. Misty is set outside, just barely out of Samantha's reach, so she'd have to reach past the seeds to get it. It's also fitting that she uses this doll named Misty. Mist is the gaseous form of water, and water is La Llorona's murder weapon. Samantha takes the
what do you
bait and is
mean?
just barely able to get Misty without breaking the line of
That's
seeds,
the weapon
but Anna
that
sees her
we
at the last
use.
second and yells at her to get away from the door, causing her to get distracted and accidentally drag the doll through the line of seeds, granting La Llorona access to the house. La Llorona immediately grabs Sam for one of the most dramatic air-eating sequences yet. She takes her to the nearest body of water, the backyard pool, and it holds her under. Anna dives in and feverishly searches with the flashlight. Upon finding her at the bottom, La Llorona attacks Anna, and during the scuffle, Anna rips off La Llorona's necklace, the same necklace given to her by her boys that she said she would wear forever. This absolutely enrages La Llorona. It's the last connection that she has to her own children. But before she can retaliate, Raphael blesses the water and mixes in salt, causing the pool to be turned into holy water, which drives La Llorona out. Anna is able to rescue Samantha from drowning, but Samantha is now in a trance, just like what Patricia's son Tomas experienced shortly before his death. Raphael and Anna realize that the only way to keep Samantha from just walking outside into La Llorona's grasp again is that they must keep her locked away. The same method that Patricia was reprimanded for the night of Anna's
It
death.
is
So fittingly, Patricia would be La Llorona's
from
trump card to weaponize against Anna's
getting the
family.
weapon.
Being a regular corporeal human, Patricia has no problem
It's
simply
two
walking over the
weapon.
fire seed barrier to abduct Chris and Samantha.
Once you get Belmont,
She'll give them back to me.
Patricia shoots Raphael on the shoulder and breaks the
Then
line
you
of
will
seeds
get the
door,
weapon.
allowing La Llorona to get inside. It isn't completely clear if Patricia entered Anna's house on her own volition or if this was
Okay.
under La Llorona's direction, but in either case, we know she was manipulated
This
by her
one?
belief that her children's souls could be freed if she offered the souls of Anna's children in their stead.
That's
La
the big
Llorona,
sword.
after powering her way through everyone in
And
the
a
house,
small
tosses
sword.
Anna into the basement stairway. As she is thrown, she drops La Llorona's necklace, but Chris picks it up and keeps it close. At this point, the trance on Samantha is broken, with no explanation as to why. I would
I
speculate
don't know.
that
I don't think the weapon changed.
as a symbol of the passage of time into the next day. Again, this goes back to the idea that Patricia brought up at the beginning, that she only needed to keep her family safe a little bit longer, and then the evil
Did it
would potentially
change?
move on. The children run to the attic, but the ball and broad finds them and corners them. As the final moments draw near and she walks towards them, Chris uses his final line of defense, La Llorona's necklace. This causes her anger to suddenly disappear. Her face returns
Eh?
to the soft, kind features from her natural life. Different people are going to interpret this in different ways, but I think in that moment, La Llorona saw Chris as one of her own children offering the necklace, and the anger and malice temporarily went away, allowing her to take the
Eh?
appearance of a more friendly
60
gift.
more hours?
On the
What do you
contrary,
mean?
you could look at it as another one of her tricks, her trying
Oh,
to get Garcia children to
flying
disregard her.
license.
The moment of pleasantness would be short-lived, however, as Samantha
That's
accidentally
nice.
uncovers a mirror, allowing La Llorona to see the reflection of her true monstrous self. Eyes covered in black blood, and she immediately reverts to her previous form. The moment did buy Chris and Samantha just enough time for Anna and Raphael to reach the attic and protect them. La Llorona turns her attention to Raphael because he poses the biggest threat with his cross made from the fire tree seeds. She
I know
vehemently
Freak
shoves
has
him into a
two
pile of
swords.
boxes. With all of the Garcia family together now, she charges at them. However, Raphael is just able to kick his cross across the room to Anna, who grabs it and promptly stabs La Llorona through the chest. that would conclude
After
the
this,
Rusty
I will
chapter with the
Google.
delicious Central American legend. However, this may not be the final chapter of her story. After Anna and the kids say goodbye to Raphael later that morning, she looks back at a puddle and sees something that alarms her while we hear the sounds of children's laughter. Could this be the return of La Llorona, who is always associated with water, or does this youthful laughter suggest that a new entity, perhaps one of her victims, has legendized as a new threat, joining the likes of Bathsheba, Malthus, Valak, and Isla, among many other evil beings in the Conjureverse? There is a lot more to learn here about these antagonists, so check out the playlist on the left for the lowdown on the Conjureverse's most horrifying villains. And remember to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week, ring the death bell, and select all.
Okay, let's check next one. It's a big sword. I guess it looks a bit thinner. The print is pretty badass, yeah.
To find the origin of Malthus, the malefic demon from Hell's deepest crevices, we must look back to the ancient text that first detailed the infernal entity's name, the Devil's Welcome. One page, studied by Mia
It's
Form
a
and
big-
Annabelle, tells of the rite of
big
evocation, or
and
the
a
ceremony
blue
of
swallow.
calling upon an evil spirit, demon, or deity. It says there is a fragment of the Dead Sea Scrolls entitled Curses of Belial, which tells of the existence
Yeah,
of
I'm an
demons. The
atheist.
Dead Sea Scrolls are ancient Jewish manuscripts found in the Qumran caves and the Dead Sea's western bank. So this book is suggesting that there is actually a long-lost piece called Curses of Belial, reflecting the sentiments shared by demons to prey on weak souls. Belial is a real term referenced in several religious texts, which some religions have personified as the devil. So when Mia reads about how Belial was thought to have influenced sin through the way that people addressed him and all his guilty lot, she's essentially learning that the other demons
Hi,
mentioned in the
Kinchan.
fragment,
How are
including Valak,
you?
Malthus, and others, all answered to Belial. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947 and thought to be 1800 to 2000 years old, making them the oldest copies of biblical text ever discovered. If we take those dates and apply them to the Conjuring universe, we can estimate that the earliest recorded text about Malthus was written around 20 BCE. We'll probably never know the actual creation date of the game, because this is as far as its lore goes back. But that's good enough for me to put a date in the thumbnail, to learn about the entire history of the presence that made this creepy children's toy famous, including how it may become the most powerful being in the Conjuring universe. Stick around to the end of this video.
I don't like the Annabelle doll. It looks so
Welcome
creepy.
to Horror History. My name is Professor CZ's World. What do they call me? A YouTuber, an influencer, a creator?
Something inhuman.
Something like that. Today's lesson is Malthus, who most notably is the antagonist of the Annabelle spin-offs. Like many Conjuring villains, Malthus is based on mythological folklore. The Lesser Key of Solomon is a 17th century spellbook on demonology that contains details about many of the demons found in popular fiction, including Paimon from Hereditary and Valak from The Conjuring 2. It's divided up into 5 titles. Ours, Goetia, focuses on the practice
Yeah, it
of
is
conjuring
creepy.
demons, so naturally it serves as a major source of lore for the Conjuring franchise. It contains 72 demons, each one serving some kind of role in the hierarchy of hell. There are kings, dukes, princes, marquises, knights, presidents, and earls. Malthus is considered an earl of hell. Also sometimes known as Halphus, this demon is not associated with the ram form as portrayed in the movies, but rather as a wicked stork with a hoarse voice. I just imagine Malthus having the voice of Jeff Garlin. Malthus is known for building up towns to house weapons and ammunition for his 26 legions of warrior demons, which he can send to attack wherever he pleases. We see this concept realized in a different way in Annabelle, where Malthus is the subject of evocation for not an army, but a cult known as the Disciples of Ram. Let's get into the demon's early interactions with mankind. For as long as there have been religious entities, those entities have had followers. Malthus's followers are a cult known as the Disciples of Ram, a reference to the rarely seen true form of the creature, a humanoid figure with a ram-like horns. It also possesses long, claw-like fingers and charcoal black features, which are explained by Annabelle director John Leonetti.
I wanted it to be like this thing had been in hell and it was jet black, like charred. Like he's really been in hell, and that was kind of the visual kind of inspiration for him.
He's also got a beautiful goatee. That one gets the CZ stamp of approval. Malthus is your traditional gargoyle-looking demon, which works thematically to tie the character into this idea of a religious clash, which takes me back to his milieu. The evocation page, the page that explains the summoning of the demon, mentions that an incantation is to be performed with spilled blood. We can't see the entire text, but it looks like the summoner should be both impious and uncleanly. Looking at the two disciples of Ram who performed the ritual on Annabelle, I'd say they check those boxes pretty neatly, especially the uncleanly part. Let's move ahead to the chapter specifically about Malthus and his disciples of Ram. The passage lays out the rules. In layman's terms, in order for Malthus to take a soul and possess a body, the victim must agree to give it up. Once the deal is made, it's everlasting, and the church fears this because if the demon tricks someone into doing this, there's not really much they can do to fix it.
This brings us to the three stages of demonic activity: infestation, oppression, and possession.
Why don't I have a projector screen like that? Ed explains the first stage, infestation.
That's the whispering, the footsteps, the feeling of another presence, which ultimately grows into oppression. Second stage.
This is definitely the case for Malthus, whose targets include an orphan who is treated differently by the other girls for her disability, a new mother who spends her days alone due to her husband's busy work schedule, a nurse who can't say no to helping people, and a student who is desperate to make contact with her deceased father.
Breaks the victim down, crushes their will, and once in a weakened state, leads them to the third and final stage, possession.
The Devil's Welcome also explains a couple more rules. As I mentioned, blood must be shed to summon him, but this is only to be done as a sacrifice to Malthus. Whatever creature is sacrificed is not to be used for food, unless it's meat given to them by the demon specifically for food. The last paragraph on the page says, "And the bow shall be in the earth, and I will establish my covenant unto thee, which I have made between me and thee, for every living creature of all flesh that shall be upon this earth." So he's saying that he wants to take all the souls and possess every living creature on the planet. So basically the same thing that the music industry is trying to do. There's a graphic on the right labeled Malthus,
Music
Earl of Hell,
industry is
the only
trying.
time the protagonist is ever mentioned by name in the series. And the picture shows the Ram demon grabbing this baby, which represents a common tactic he's known to use. By putting a baby in danger, he can sometimes pressure a naive mother into offering her soul in exchange for the child's safety.
Do some?
But you said that it can't take Leah, so
Okay.
you said that it has to be offered.
And a baby cannot offer its soul.
Mia.
This wouldn't be the only clever tactic of deception used by the demon.
The devil is the father of lies. Demons are his manipulators. No one ever plans to offer their soul.
This presence would infest many homes over the years, and each of them taught the fiend some new tricks that it would carry on to its next target, meaning if it isn't contained, it could become more and more deceptive, making it more and more powerful. We will pick up on some of these tricks as we follow Malthus's journey through history. Malthus's earliest known targets were the Mullins family, Samuel and Esther. They lost their 7-year-old daughter, Anna,
Yeah, I like
to a
horror
car accident
movies.
in 1943. So Malthus
I
tried to
just
manipulate
don't
them
pay
and get
attention
away.
to
The young girl's diary was abruptly cut short, but after many
the
nights,
demon's
a new
name.
message appeared. Dear diary, today I came home.
Annabelle comes home.
That thing is your
Not yet
favorite.
Annabelle Comes Home. We're still
Yeah,
on
it's a
Annabelle
good
tradition.
movie.
It all started one night during dinner when they heard Bee's favorite record start playing randomly and assumed it was her spirits. They noticed more and more activity that mimicked the things that their daughter used to do. And eventually they found a note asking for their permission to move into this doll so that she could be with them forever. And they happily agreed. This was not the spirit of their deceased daughter, however. And by falling for this trick and having faith that they could speak to Bee again, the evil entity got stronger. Soon, it could use the form of the Mullins girl. They were able to see what they thought was her ghost in fleeting glimpses. This was stage 1, infestation.
But we soon realized it wasn't our Annabelle at all. demon. What do they want?
Depends on the horror movie. Of course.
And they won't stop until they get one.
Mrs. Mullins decided
There are
to
many
approach
that
one
are
of the
creepy.
apparitions with a cross, but what appeared to be her daughter convulsed and twisted itself into a demonic form. She dropped the cross in shock, and Malthus attacked her, scarring her face and taking out her left eye. As the girl's mother, Mrs. Mullins was the most psychologically vulnerable. This was stage 2, oppression. It had used her hope of speaking to her daughter again to make an attempt at her soul. Samuel reached out to the church and they saved Mrs. Mullins from potentially being possessed. But the evil was still attached to the doll, so it was locked away in Bee's closet and surrounded by Bible pages, a cross, and doused with holy water. The demonic entity would cease, but the Mullins did not realize the room would have to continuously be blessed in order for the seal to remain strong. 4 years later, in 1947, the Dead Sea Scroll is discovered, and word of the disciples of Ram would soon spread to the troubled group of people that would start the cult. Another 8 years go by, and Mr. Mullins and his wife decide to take on a group of girls from St. Eustace Orphanage. They believed that sheltering these girls would be their penance, but they unknowingly gave Malthus exactly what it wanted, a new, weaker target whose soul was ripe for possession.
It's been quiet for 12 years.
The strange activity would begin again after the girls moved in 1955. The new target is Janice, a young girl who is partially immobilized by polio. After discovering her, Malthus uses the form of Bee
Your
to
mother
sneak
is
up
the
on her and give
largest
her a fright.
horror
At
movie
dinner the
buff,
first
you know.
night, the lights flicker, a sign that the evil is no longer contained to that single closet. That night, it leaves Janice a note, reading "Find Me," referencing
Yeah,
the
I
way they
love
used to play with
to
her
watch
father.
horror
Janice is led
movies.
into Bee's room, which is supposed to be locked. Malthus has left the key to the closet for her to find and discover the hiding place of the doll. It makes her uncomfortable, so she covers it up and attempts to lock it away. But when her back is turned, the inhuman spirit appears behind her. But when the sheet is removed, Malthus is in a form not visible to the human eye. More scary stuff begins to happen around the house. Linda sees the doll move on its own while playing hide and seek, and a mask-wearing form resembling Mrs. Mullins scares the girls, disappearing as the light is turned on.
That wasn't a ghost. Ghosts can only be of dead people.
One night, Janice is lured back into Bee's room where she catches an apparition asking her for help.
Can you help me? What do you need?
Malthus
Oh
proceeds
my
to
God.
drag her around, leaving a laceration on her leg. She manages to escape the room, but Malthus slams all of the bedroom doors so that she can't get help, leaving her no option but to go for the stair lift. Isolating the target to make her feel alone seems to be a common tactic for Malthus. She looks up and sees the
Ghost
evil
horror is
exiting the
overdone.
room in what appears to be a gaseous form. This is the only time we see the demon travel like this, but I can only assume that this is how it usually gets around, to be able to travel through walls and perhaps change itself into multiple forms. Janet's chair stalls 3/4 of the way down, so she tries to get up and crawl to safety on her own. The last thing she sees is the form of Bee, standing at the top of the stairs, before she is air-yeeted high into the foyer and then dropped onto the cold, hard floor. She later admits to Sister Charlotte, who is in charge of all the orphans, that she believes that the presence is preying on her because she is the weakest. But Charlotte disagrees, telling her that the devil preys on those weak of faith, not weak of flesh or bone. The night she returns from the hospital, her friend Linda has a few scary experiences with Malthus. She looks through the keyhole to Bee's room and sees the Annabelle doll using the rocking chair, but when she opens the door, it's nowhere to be seen. Then, as she's playing with the ball shooter in her room, the invisible entity grabs it and raises it to the top of the doorframe before yanking it from her hands. She hears loud footsteps, or perhaps hoof steps, running towards her, so she hides in her top bunk and listens as the lights are turned off and Malthus inhabits the lower bunk, leaving behind charred black footsteps, another sign of the burning the creature would have endured in the deepest layers of hell. Linda looks down and sees Annabelle staring back up at her, and she hides under the covers after seeing Malthus in its true demonic form. At this point, Janice, Linda, and the two older girls, Carol and Nancy, have all had scary experiences with Malthus, but it is not yet attempted to possess any of them. I think the demon is testing each of the girls to see whose faith is the weakest. Janice is the weakest of body, but it's also possible that this also led to her faith being weakened. As she becomes older and more crippled, she realizes that no family will want to take in a broken child, and that idea is demoralizing for her. She's also dealing with the fact that she's treated differently than the other girls due to her condition, and this makes her an easy target because the demonic attacks can be explained away as Janice lashing out is a response to what she's going through emotionally. She's at that age where her hormones take over her emotions, an age that is commonly associated with the
Bedroom
type of
scene
culture
reminds
because
me
the
of
spirits
one
are
of the
said to be
best
attracted to the
horror
negative
indie
feelings that come
movies
with nearing those teenage
games
years.
I've played.
The next day, Sister Charlotte takes her her out into the sunlight, and Malthus makes up its
I
mind
don't really like
first. It takes longer than most,
horror
something
games
we've
though.
seen many times from its European counterpart, Valet. The creepy nun is a popular form for these demons to take because it represents an attack on the victim's religious belief, much like how the ominous knocking in The Conjuring always comes in threes as an insult to the Holy Trinity. The creepy nun shoves Janice out of the wheelchair and into the barn, where it reverts to the form of B to crawl out of the shadows and begin stage 3, possession. In The Controversy, you basically just have to puke in someone's mouth to possess them, I guess. I think Malthus essentially just made Janice give up at this point. She had gotten back from the hospital, and already she was going to have another demonic encounter and probably another injury. With one victim possessed, Malthus had achieved its goal. But remember the text in the Devil's Welcome: to establish covenants unto the people and for every living creature of all flesh that shall be upon the earth. In other words, Malthus will now use Janice to try to possess the bodies of the others, then keep expanding out until the whole world is taken over. For its next target, Malthus wants to take advantage of the element of surprise. So when Sister Charlotte comes in to check on her, Janice pretends to be fine. But with the added power of Janice, the Ram Demon decides to try again with a target that it was unable to possess 13 years ago. Mr. Mullins is alerted to the return of the Annabelle doll from Linda and goes inside to find it ready to face him in his kitchen. But the doll is not actually possessed by Malthus. The demon only moves it around to give the appearance of possession, as explained later on by Lorraine Warren.
Demonic spirits don't possess things. They possess people.
Most horror
Janice
games
does her
are
best
just
lights out Diana impression and
half the
transforms
time
into
you
its
turn off all the
traditional
lights in the
gargoyle or
game
ram demon form, which I'll
and
be
goes to
referring to
investigate
as
every
its true
single
form,
noise you
because
hear.
that's what I picture in my head when I think about a demon. This time, even holding up a cross is not enough to protect
Yeah.
him from the evil. I think it's a combination
It's
of
never
Malthus'
a
own
good
power by possessing
idea
Janice
to
and the fact that his
investigate
cross is homemade, and he admits that it isn't his best work.
sounds
Malthus brutally
in
breaks
real
off each of his
life.
fingers one by one, forcing him to drop the cross before moving in on him. Even if Mr. Mullins supposedly wasn't using his best cross, it still speaks volumes to the power of Malthus. We never see any of the other Conjuring villains do anything like this. This scene represents the power of belief. It's a common trope for religious people to claim they found religion after a personal tragedy. For Mr. Mullins, losing his daughter created the negative energy that initially attracted Malthus. So the idea of turning to religion is used in a literal sense, where Bible pages and holy water are used to seal the demon away. So now the movie is showing us that letting go of religion, literally dropping the cross, has opened him back up to being vulnerable to Malthus. Linda realizes that the evil presence seems to be connected to the creepy doll and tries to discard it in the well. Look, Linda, just because it worked for Coraline doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. She once again hears Hood march up behind her, the closer she gets to the well. After dropping it in, she hears a small voice call out, "Help me." It's hard to tell for sure, but this seems to be Bee's voice. So this is probably Malthus once again trying to mislead her by making her think that Bee's soul is trapped in the doll or something. It nearly works, because Linda is practically dragged into the well by a pale pair of hands with long fingers. This doesn't appear to be Bee or Janice. It could be the hands of the nun form that I mentioned earlier, or it's possible that there were other forms acquired
Stay
before
dark,
Bee.
stay
With the
quiet.
help of Sister Charlotte, Linda is saved and the well is covered. But when they return to the house, the Annabelle doll is
I
back on
see.
the couch where Janice had just been sleeping. Charlotte takes the doll into Mrs. Mullins' room looking for answers, and her reaction speaks to the terror that it brought her 12 years ago.
Horror life. Yeah,
She claims
it's
that
a
the evil
creepy
has
movie.
returned, calling it the devil itself, which is probably not accurate based on what we know from the Devil's Welcome. Malthus is just one of the many demons working under the devil, Belial. With the demonic nature of the haunting now revealed, Malthus can no longer rely on deception to possess its victims. So with its game plan out the window, it launches a full-on offensive attack. At this point, we have multiple things going on in multiple locations. I would still attribute all of this activity to Malthus, but because Janice is still alive and possessed by Malthus, she's essentially programmed to act on its behalf. So Janice can be upstairs terrorizing the orphans, while Malthus is downstairs using whatever form it wants to torment Mrs. Mullins. So Nancy, Carol, and Tierney find Janice having tea with the Annabelle doll, and Janice attacks Nancy. Sister Charlotte attempts to dispel the demon using prayer, so Janice air eats her into a mirror. The girls try to scream for help, but Janice has another idea.
Or you could help me.
Meanwhile, Malthus cuts Mrs. Mullins in half, crucifies her to a wall, and rings her bell to try to lure the girls into the room. They're horrified by what they find, and they try to flee the property using Mr. Mullins' truck, where they encounter a scarecrow with an ability to move on its own. Using the rules about these demons that we've already established, we can guess that it's another one of Malthus's tricks. Just like with the Annabelle doll, the scarecrow is not possessed, but simply moved around to give the impression of possession. The girls try to hide in the barn, but Carol gets locked in alone, where she encounters the scarecrow. Again, it's in a position reminiscent of a crucifix, and again it ties back into Malthus making a mockery of religious symbols. She discovers the demonic true form hiding inside the scarecrow, and it busts out, climbs to the ceiling, and descends upon her. But she's able to get away to the toy shop where Nancy finds her. In the house, Linda discovers the remains of Mrs. Mullins, which jolt to life and come after her. So she hides in the dumbwaiter, which Janice is able to crawl through to come after her. She sees the claw of Malthus's true form grasp onto the platform, meaning that both the possessed Janice and the demon itself are coming after her. She hides in the blessed closet, where Annabelle had once been sealed by the priest, but Janice finds her. Sister Charlotte is able to rescue her once again by throwing her cross necklace around Janice and locking her into the closet. I think it's quite fitting that Malthus is continually foiled by an actual nun. The pain caused by these religious items causes Malthus to go crazy, causing the house to shake, lights to flicker, electronics to glitch, furniture to fly all around, and glass to shatter. The demonic growl can even be heard from outside the house as Malthus, despite the pain that this might have caused, penetrates the Bible page plaster wall, allowing Janice to disappear into the night. Only the Annabelle doll and Sister Charlotte's necklace are left behind. It appears that Malthus maybe stays with the doll though, because after Father Massey blesses the house, the doll is sent away with the police. The father claims that the evil is gone, and that the doll is now just a doll, but after being moved to a new Bible page lined room, Annabelle is still under the control of an external force. It seems that Malthus stayed with the doll by choice. It's later described by paranormal expert Ed Warren, who explains that the demonic force is latched on to the doll. Of course, it's never explicitly explained why, but I would guess it's for one of two reasons. Perhaps Malthus saw value in remaining with the Annabelle doll because it had proven itself successful as a way to trick people. Or maybe there's actually some kind of bond being formed between the evil deity and this handmade toy, in the same way that Ed Warren describes the items in his Cursed Artifact book.
Throw them in an incinerator.
Destroy them, that would only destroy the vessel. Sometimes it's better to keep the genie in the bottle.
Janice somehow ends up at St. Joachim Orphanage, where she's adopted by a couple named Mr. and Mrs. Higgins. She takes on the name Annabelle, the actual first name of B. Although she is still possessed, she doesn't immediately take on an evil persona, instead becoming more and more horrible over the next couple years before eventually running away from home to join a cult. Of course, the cult she joins is the Disciples of Ram, the Charles Manson-led group dedicated to summoning Malthus. She gets a crazy-looking cultist boyfriend, and although this part of the story isn't shown on screen, I'm guessing it's no coincidence that the Annabelle doll ends up in the hands of Mr. and Mrs. Higgins' next-door neighbor, Mia Thorne. Perhaps it was one of the cult's evocation spells that caused the doll to be moved so close to home. On October 2nd, 1967, 12 years after her adoption into the Higgins family, and roughly a decade after she ran away, Janice, now known as Annabelle, would come home.
Annabelle comes home, rated R.
Nope, it's still not you. As part of a ritual to call upon Malthus, Janice and her boyfriend invade her adoptive parents' home one evening and slit their throats before heading next door to steal back the doll. This fulfills the blood sacrifice requirements of the evocation spell. Part of the ritual to reawaken the demon also seems to involve Janice offering herself while holding the doll in her arms and possibly leaving this A symbol on the wall in red paint. Or maybe she just felt that was an improvement to the wallpaper of the nursery. I mean, I kinda like it. The summoning ritual seems to do the trick, because the next day, unexplainable occurrences start happening in John and Mia's house, including a sewing machine turning on in the middle of the night, the doll moving on its own, and the day after that, unprovoked movement of a rocking chair. Mia tells her husband that she can't bear to have the doll anymore.
Doll.
Maybe it was an anchor.
But like the time that Linda tried to dump the doll down the well, it somehow appears again. It seems that if Malthus has its target set on you, there's nothing you can actually do to get rid of the Annabelle doll, unlike the penguin from Mario 64.
Okay.
On October 5th, Malthus starts a fire in the form's kitchen, and when a pregnant Mia tries to get away, she is aerated back into the flames. Thinking the house is haunted or something, John and Mia move to Pasadena after Mia delivers the baby. This is one of the classic horror movie blunders. Malthus simply follows them there and continues to mess with them by screwing with the TV and using the appearance of the child and teenage Janice to scare Mia and get inside her head. Or at least something that looks like Janice. I mean, Malthus is a pretty important demon who I'm sure can't be bothered by little trivial details like what Janice actually looks like. I also talked earlier about how Malthus was able to exploit the negative emotions of the Mullins when they were in mourning. It uses similar tactics here by listening in on John and Mia's conversations about the stress caused by their new parenthood and John's job to divide them even further. Malthus seems to focus its attacks on when Mia is home alone with the baby to make her feel further isolated, like on October 7th when it lures her into the living room while hiding behind the curtain, a little trick it picked up from B, then blasting her to the ground and running away in the form of Janice, or whatever. With Mia, Malthus is taking a somewhat similar approach as it did with the Mullins. Instead of tricking them into giving up their souls with the false promise of speaking to their daughter again, Malthus is pretending to go after the soul of the baby in hopes that Mia will offer her soul in exchange for her child's safety.
Demons can't just take souls, Mia. A soul needs to be offered to the demon before it can take it. And a baby cannot offer its soul.
So the next night, Malthus does everything it can to make Mia feel that her baby is in danger. After putting Leah to bed, she goes to the basement to put some stuff into storage when she hears the sound of a baby fussing, and a carriage appears at the end of the room. She investigates to find that the stroller is actually empty, and that this is a trap devised by Malthus in its true form. Malthus grabs her forearm and scratches the A symbol onto it. The creature rises up to a terrifying height as she runs away, and the elevator won't operate when she tries to ride it to safety, forcing her to run back through the basement to get to the stairs. She hears her baby crying as she runs out a virtual suicide squeeze back to her apartment, but trips and drops her flashlight. When she looks back over the edge, she realizes that Malthus is right below her. Almost the same scenario as when Linda saw Malthus in the bunk below her at the Mullins farmhouse. When she gets back to her floor, she looks back and sees Malthus growling and staring at her from less than one full flight of stairs below. Then, during one lightning strike, it is instantly advanced up to her level before she sprints the rest of the way into her apartment. This is one of the only times we actually see Malthus use this method of extremely fast movement, or possibly teleportation, but it does help explain something about Annabelle creation. Specifically, the part where it scares the girls out of the downstairs bedroom, then is already waiting for them when they run to the barn. Some unspecified amount of time goes by. It's long enough that the scratch on Mia's arm is fully healed. On the way home from a bookstore, she hears Janice/Annabelle whisper her name, and the baby stroller rolls into the street and gets the old Gage Street treatment from a garbage truck. Luckily for her, Leah wasn't in the stroller, but this is all part of Malthus's plan to make her feel like giving up her soul is the only way to save her baby. It continues this narrative later when it traps Mia in the nursery and bombards the baby with a barrage of heavy books off the bookshelf. Mia is able to break out of the room and get to her daughter, so Malthus terrifies her by lifting up the Annabelle doll while staring at her from the shadows with bloodshot eyes. A terrified John and Mia send the doll away with their priest, Father Perez. So Malthus goes along for the ride, lending more credence to my theory that there's some kind of binding force between the demon and the doll. On the drive, Malthus interrupts the father's baseball game by messing with the radio. Rude. Just rude. The father tries to bring the doll into the church, and Malthus, perhaps remembering the pain inflicted by being locked away and surrounded by holy items, channels a ton of power and air yeets Father Perez into the street. Janice, or at least Malthus in its Janice form, takes the doll back to return it to Mia. When John discovers what happened to Father Perez, he tries to call and warn his wife, but Malthus messes with the phone lines. It's interesting to me that a demon that existed long before electronic technology does so much tampering with phones, TVs, and radios, but it would make sense that it would try to deceive humans by using their primary methods of communication. Just as it used a nun form before taking the soul of Janice, it now uses the form of Father Perez to stage its final attack on her.
May God have mercy on your soul!
It pulls out all the stops to try to convince Mia to offer her soul, like playing demonic chanting over the record player, disfiguring the dolls in the nursery, crawling on the ceiling, and even kidnapping Leah, which sends Mia into a desperate search for her daughter that culminates in her asking. And her getting her answer written on the ceiling, before getting the revised answer written on the opening window. It's a suggestion to Mia to give her life so that Malthus can harvest her soul, but at the end of the day, she must be the one to give herself up. John arrives just in time to save Mia from throwing her life away. However, Malthus still ends up getting what it wanted in the end when their friend Evelyn gives her own soul in Mia's stead. So Malthus does win this round, but the Form family gets their baby back, and the Annabelle doll disappears from their lives. In April of 1968, the doll somehow ended up in a gift shop, where a woman who claimed to have been looking everywhere for one of Mr. Mullins' limited edition dolls picked it up and gave it to her daughter, Camilla, as a birthday present. Like with each of the previous victims, Camilla and her roommate Debbie start to notice small paranormal occurrences that ramp up over the months that would follow. At first, they would just notice the doll's hand or leg move. Then it would move from room to room when they were gone. They hired a medium who seemed to successfully make contact with the spirit of Annabelle Higgins, not realizing that she was actually talking to Malthus. Malthus told the medium that Annabelle passed away in their apartment long ago and wanted permission to move into the doll and be friends with the nurses that live there. As we know by now, this was all a trick. They began to find unsettling notes, which lead up to Malthus vandalizing their spare room. They try throwing the doll into the dumpster, but as we know, that doesn't work either. Debbie finds another ominous note, and they discover the Annabelle doll sitting back in the apartment once more. Something also happens between the doll and one of their boyfriends, though it's not clear exactly what. Realizing they're in more trouble than the medium led them to believe, they decide to call in the Big Help and contact renowned demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens explain how the inhuman spirits tricked them.
You gave it permission to infest your lives.
Before things get any worse, Ed and Lorraine called the church to have a priest sent in to bless the apartment and its inhabitants, which seemed to do the trick. I think Malthus knew what it was up against here and decided to calm down for the time being. The Warrens would take the doll with them for safekeeping. Annabelle was finally coming home.
Annabelle comes home. Rated R. Comes home. Experience it in IMAX.
As Ed and Lorraine head back home after finally securing the Annabelle doll, their car breaks down next to a cemetery in Maryville. Given Malthus's tendency to mess with lights, TVs, radios, telephones, record players, elevators, and chairlifts, I'm sure this breakdown was probably a result of the evil entity associated with the doll. Malthus decided to do this next to a cemetery because of another powerful attribute this demon possesses.
It's the doll, Ed. It's a beacon for other spirits.
So all of the lingering spirits from the graveyard are drawn to Malthus, who is latched onto the doll, and Malthus is able to manipulate these spirits into doing its bidding. One of them pushes Ed into the street in front of a speeding truck. Judd Crandall would not have been pleased.
Don't let him go on the road, Lord!
Malthus takes over the truck so that the driver has no control and tries to take out Ed, who is barely able to dodge the oncoming vehicle. The inhuman spirit was far more powerful than they anticipated. Their priest, Father Gordon, is waiting for them when they arrive home. As they take Annabelle to the artifact room, the doll stares at their young daughter, Judy, perhaps perceiving her as a weaker target. At first they leave the doll in a rocking chair, but it causes complete chaos, making clocks run backwards and influencing other artifacts to come to life. A simple blessing and splash of holy water is not enough to contain it, so they build a glass case using material from the Trinity Church Chapel. The doll gains a reputation as the Warrens' most malevolent item, at least at the time. It would continue to be housed at their home in Monroe, Connecticut, and be blessed twice a month by a priest. It would remain there for the next 3 years. In 1971, while the Warrens are investigating a case in Rhode Island, they bring back the spirit of a witch named Bathsheba. Because Bathsheba is particularly malicious, and because Malthus is a beacon for other spirits, the witch becomes attracted to the doll and frees it from the protective casing. In the middle of the night, Bathsheba takes the doll out into one of the rooms. Judy is woken up by Bathsheba pulling at her ankle and investigates the house. She finds Bathsheba rocking on a chair and combing Annabelle's hair in one of the rooms. Malthus turns Annabelle's head to give the appearance that the doll itself is turning to stare at Judy. She tries to exit the room but finds that she's locked in, and the two malevolent spirits have disappeared from human sight. This is a potentially disastrous situation. You have one inexperienced young medium trapped inside with two powerful and malicious supernatural entities. One of them starts hurling furniture at her, but luckily Ed and Lorraine get home in time to rescue her before she takes on any damage. Ed checks the cursed artifact room to see if anything is out of order, but by that time Annabelle is back in the glass case, so this potential catastrophe ends up being more of a minor incident, but perhaps this also reinvigorated the demon's spirits. The following year, in September 1972, shortly before Judy Warren's birthday party that year, a girl named Daniela Rios sneaks into the Warrens' artifact room and places a photo of her deceased father on the piano, hoping to find a way to make contact with the other side to talk to him. Malthus senses that she's a vulnerable target because she's in mourning, just like Mr. and Mrs. Mullins were. She asks for a sign from any presence that might be in the room, so Malthus leans the Annabelle doll forward against the glass. This causes Daniela to open up the case and pick up the doll, but just then a smoke alarm from the kitchen sends her quickly on her way. However, she forgets to lock the case back up, and Annabelle is finally able to escape again. As a beacon for other spirits, Malthus is able to release many more horrifying entities from the objects that they're bound to. A few of them include the ferryman, the black shuck, the haunted wedding dress of Anna Baker, and others. After escaping its prison, the Annabelle doll sits at the kitchen table as Judy's babysitter, Mary Ellen, orders a pizza. The doorbell rings, accompanied by a familiar set of 3 knocks. When Mary Ellen looks through the peephole, no one is there, but when she opens the door, she sees B, who asks if Annabelle can come to play. When Mary Ellen says she has the wrong house, she tells her to look right behind her, but the doll is now gone. Malthus takes on different forms for different people to try to deceive them. In Daniela's case, it uses the form of her father, which is part of Malthus's plan to lull her into a sense of security. Later on, Judy senses something going on upstairs and sees the bride associated with the haunted wedding dress go into one of the rooms. However, this can't just be the ghost on its own because it finds a note that says, "Miss me." just like the nurses did when Malthus began terrorizing them. So when the bride comes at her with a knife, it's likely being driven by Malthus. Later that night, Malthus continues to haunt Judy by hiding the remote under the couch and frightening her with the Annabelle doll when she goes to look for it. The Black Shuck is a werewolf-like creature that guards the perimeter of the house, preventing Mary Ellen's love interest, Bob, from offering help to the three girls. Daniela is lured into the cursed artifact room again when Malthus leaves the door unlocked to tempt her. She tries using the mourning bracelet, an item said to let somebody connect with a deceased loved one. While this bracelet does work for Lorraine under the right circumstances, Malthus interferes with it by pretending to be her dad. She sees his face appear in the mirror, but when she turns to look at him, one of his eyes is missing, much like Mrs. Mullins. Malthus probably saw how much the one-eyed Mrs. Mullins scared the girls back at the farmhouse and decided to try to use it again on Daniela. That's probably what makes Malthus one of the cleverest and most dangerous inhuman spirits in the Conjuring franchise. It never forgets an old trick, so the longer it sticks around, the more tactics it learns, and the better it gets at deceiving its prey and coercing them to give up their souls. The fact that it still uses B. Mullins as one of its forms 29 years after her death just proves that Malthus always still has an old trick at its disposal. As with the Mullins and the form residence hauntings before, Malthus ramps things up throughout the nights to try to put its victims on edge. First, it shatters Mary Ellen's milk glass, then randomly turns on the radio. When she checks in on a sleeping Judy, Mary Ellen discovers the Annabelle doll under the covers. She finds it kind of disturbing, but doesn't know that the doll is attached to an evil entity, so she doesn't think much of it. When she goes back downstairs, the TV is on. Malthus also messes with the TV inside the artifact room where Daniela is. This time, instead of pulling out another old trick, it puts a new one on display, by making the television show what happens a few seconds into the future. Like many of the strange things that happen in the Conjureverse, this phenomenon isn't ever explained, but I personally think that it's actually very simple. If Lorraine has a clairvoyance ability which allows her to foresee future events, like her daughter being in danger in The Conjuring 1 and her husband being in danger in The Conjuring 2, who's to say that Malthus doesn't also have a touch of clairvoyance? And since we've already seen that Malthus has the ability to make electronics go haywire, it doesn't seem like too much of a stretch for it to be able to display these future events on a TV screen. Meanwhile, Mary Ellen hears a tape player playing audio of Ed and Lorraine's case file on their investigation of the Ferryman, an evil spirit set loose by Malthus. She finds the source of the audio and turns it off. The Ferryman is known for putting coins over the eyes of its victims, and she follows a trail of coins until she sees a pair of them floating on the ceiling. We saw Malthus hide on the ceiling before attacking Carol in 1955 and Evelyn in 1967, so seeing the Ferryman use this approach means that Malthus was probably involved. It's likely using the Ferryman as a conduit, in the same way we saw Valak use the ghost of Bill Wilkins in The Conjuring 2. Mary Ellen runs for it, but she trips on something and gets air-yeeted back into the dark. Using her flashlight, she's able to temporarily free herself from the evil spirit's grip. She immediately hightails it to Judy's room, but Judy would have her own confrontation in which Malthus would bring out its full arsenal of alternate forms.
Oh.
Judy sleeps next to a revolving color wheel lamp, a novelty item that dates back to the 1950s. This lamp would have an unusual effect on the demon Malthus. It begins with Malthus dragging Judy by the ankle to wake her up. This is exactly how Bathsheba woke up her victims in The Conjuring, though it's not clear if Bathsheba actually escaped the music box it was captured in, or if Malthus just learned this from the witch's ghost when they met the previous year. When she wakes up, Judy quickly realizes that something is wrong when she discovers the Annabelle doll underneath the covers with her. Bee appears from under the covers at the foot of the bed and scares her, causing her to knock over the color wheel. It continues to spin and project its colored light onto the wall. As each color changes, a different form of Malthus is displayed. It starts with the doll, then Bee, then the adult version of Janice, and finally, the rarely seen true form of Malthus. Then it appears behind her on the bed and screeches at her. She bolts out of the room where Mary Ellen is waiting for her. With the Black Shuck outside, they realize they're trapped in. They place a call to Lorraine for help, but Malthus has manipulated the phone lines as well.
I'm sorry?
You need to give her a soul, dear.
What?
A soul. She wants her soul. Give me her soul.
That's even more annoying than telemarketers. Well, no, maybe not that annoying. Before trying to make an attempt on one of their souls, all of the bells in the house start ringing, which might be another callback to Mrs. Mullins, who had a bedside handbell to request help. Then the typewriter goes all Jack Torrance and writes the words "miss me" over and over. A phone starts ringing in the artifact room, and Judy and Mary Ellen get in there just in time to stop Daniela from touching it. She admits to being the one who let Annabelle out of the case and has bad news regarding the other spirits in the room.
What else did you touch?
This sends Mary Ellen into an asthma attack, but as Judy goes to fetch her inhaler, the creepy bride sneaks up on Daniela using the same teleport forward mechanic that Malthus used on Mia Form in the stairwell. It appears that she's stabbed Daniela in the stomach, but it's only an illusion. She pins her to the ground and pukes inside her mouth. So, for the first time since Janice in 1955, Malthus has a new vessel. After Judy safely returns with the inhaler, Daniela tries to beckon the two of them to go upstairs, but Judy, taking after her mother's medium abilities, senses something is wrong and leads Mary Ellen to try to find the Annabelle doll so they can put an end to the horror they were living through that night. They find the cursed children's toy in the closet inside the Warrens' office, but the door is locked, so they have to play this board game, Feely Mealy, in order to win the key. I found it a bit strange that this evil, inhuman spirit would just stop in the middle of everything and strike up a board game with these kids, but when I went back, I realized that the game is seen in the room of cursed objects at the beginning. So this is probably another trial where Malthus is manipulating whatever evil spirit was living in this board game. Judy is able to win the key, and Mary Ellen ventures into the closet, which now resembles the ferryman's tombs. She's only able to toss the doll back to Judy before being pulled back into the abyss, but Judy recovers the fumble and makes a break for the end zone before being met with Daniela, who is infused with both the evil of Malthus and the ire of the wedding dress spirits. Mary Ellen comes in with the key block, and big brain Judy's fast thinking probably saves a couple of lives when she turns on a projector with a recording of Ed performing an exorcism. This essentially seems to have the same effect as him performing the actual exorcism, and causes immense pain to the demonic presence inside of her. This buys them just enough time to get Annabelle back to the case, but when Judy opens it, Malthus slams it shut, corners her, and attempts to suck out Judy's soul using a Dementor's kiss. As you may know, the Dementor's kiss is an act performed by the wraith-like species of prison guards in the Wizarding World, aka the Harry Potter franchise, to suck out the soul of anyone who gets in their way. The Controverse and the Wizarding World may both be Warner Brothers properties, but they're not the same universe. However, Malthus doesn't seem to care, and he nearly performs the Dementor's kiss on Judy. Mary Ellen tries to come in and save her, so Malthus gets in one last air yeet and sends her flying into the wall. But this gives Judy just enough time to grab a nearby cross, something she probably should have done a while ago, and press it to Malthus's head. Mary Ellen places the Annabelle doll back into the chapel glass case, but Malthus's power prevents her from being able to force it shut. Things look hopeless as all of the escaped evil spirits from that night surround them. But luckily for them, Daniela shows up, now free of the demonic possession. She is the only character that we know of to ever be freed from Malthus's grip, and with her strength, they're able to force Annabelle's case closed. I can only imagine that Daniela never actually gave in to the idea of Malthus taking her soul, and that's why she was able to be exorcised. The doll and the demonic presence bound to it are once again sealed, and without the spiritual beacon of the Annabelle doll, Malthus and the other spirits are no longer able to materialize in our world.
The evil has been contained.
As far as we know, Malthus would remain locked in Ed and Lorraine Warren's cursed artifact room from that point forward. But the real life story is perhaps open to another chapter. Lorraine Warren passed away in April of 2019 and left the cursed artifact room, which is known in real life as the Warrens Occult Museum, to her son-in-law, Tony Spera. That's Judy's husband. In 2020, because of course this would happen in 2020, it was reported that the Annabelle doll had somehow escaped and was now missing from the room. Tony Spera took to YouTube to shoot down these rumors.
Annabelle's here, and she didn't go anywhere. She didn't take a trip. So, you know, here she is. So let's put the rumors to rest, guys.
But during this fiasco, it also came out that Tony and Judy were looking to relocate the museum, which had been closed for some time due to zoning issues. So it's not hard to imagine a future Controverse story where one of the movers doesn't take the proper precautions with the Annabelle doll and Malthus is set loose once more. We've seen a lot of these many years later horror sequels recently, so maybe a modern day Annabelle sequel could eventually be in the cards. Let me know in the comments which other Controverse characters or entities you'd like to see covered here on Horror History, and if you love horror, remember to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week. Ring the death bell, not the spirit bell, for notifications, and I will see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.
Okay. Ini bersama What Hmm. paper. Auto 是豆。Let's trade paper. Right. I tolerate my water. And I'll see you guys. Bye bye.
Yo, Nozomi, what's going on? Thank you so much for the raid. How was your stream? What is up? What is up? Nothing much. Nice. Sorry, I'm in perpetual anger over here. I didn't like set up my face tracking on Lunar's PC. Stream out all the very nice. What'd you get up to today? What was the plans for streaming and gaming? And also, hey Azriho, how we doing? So your pet isn't here today? Yeah, we don't have him on Lunar's computer either. I'm borrowing a PC right now to be here. Plans? Yeah, like what did you do on stream? That you have indeed. I'm using Lunar's PC. Yeah, exactly. Tower Fantasy. Oh, nice. Did you get everything you were looking for? Hopefully. Nope. Rip. Maybe next time. Hopefully next time. You got this. All the belief. Power. Okay. Gonna wait for Saki's banner. I don't know who that is, but good luck for when you pull. How much does this guy heal? Heals for 200 and deals 5% of their health. No, I changed my mind. I'm going for a memeier build that's probably gonna cost me everything. Thanks, of course, of course. Always want to see you get those big juicy, what is it, 6-star pulls in this one. Rip. Wait, should I? Oh, wait. I mean, mistonk. What? Cavaliers? Except for Twitch, you said?
I said any Cavaliers or Bills.
Oh, okay.
Except for Sleepaway and Twitch. Oh, 2 Sleepstones? Fine.
This is your extra armor. Ooh, items, items. Oh, oh, but this one's also pretty good. Can't go wrong with that one.
Time to introduce myself.
You perished in 6th? No, I'm sorry, Jay. Next game, you got it. 100%. Why do you not want spatulas? What the heck is wrong with you?